Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal. Jeff Buerhle, that's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It's a Samson Sit-Down, the one I've been waiting for since I got out of baseball. When we started this show, I just wanted to do an episode with someone who is the best agent. Yeah, I'm going to call him that. You think I don't like agents? This one, Jeff Buerhle, wait till you meet him, hear about him, get his story, and you will come to the conclusion I've come to, that he is amongst, if not the best of all time. Jeff Buerhle, welcome to Nothing Personal.
Well, thank you. Thank you, David. That was quite an introduction. And Coca, thank you for having me on as well. I think I told David before, I love saying your name. I think David is world-class at what he does, but I also think your name adds distinct value to this show. So if I say Coca more than 10 times in this episode, I don't know, we'll negotiate some sort of bonus for you.
I'll take the under on that because you'll just embarrass him. I want to give people an understanding of who we're talking to, because you're the type of agent I would call you, and we did call you this. I worked with you for decades. You are a super agent, and I mean that in every sense of the word. And I'm not trying to blow smoke up your keister. I'm trying to tell you that you were brilliant to negotiate with. You were fair, you were difficult, and I did many deals with you, and you've negotiated. We at JT Realmuto and Mark Buerhle, which we're going to talk about, Roy Hallady. I think obviously we've had so many connections. Your biggest client and most well-known client may have been Buster Posey, and obviously that led to a bunch of rule changes when our team hurt your player. And I remember those conversations well, as I know you do. So I just want the audience to know that you are looking right now live at someone who's negotiated billions of dollars of contracts and who did something that is maybe the most rare thing in the world of business. He left on top. He went full Jim Brown. And Jeff, I got to start there. I was blown away when I read that you had decided to walk away and retire, though I don't like the word retirement, and you may dispute this. I don't think it means you're sitting around eating bonbons. But no. Man, what went into that thought process that you walked away the way you did?
Well, it's interesting on any of this. It's one of the things. One, thank you it was a really nice introduction. I don't know if it's deserved. I think, for anyone listening in business or anything, my whole philosophy the whole time as an agent is answer your phone, be as honest as you can, do the best you can. And that's what I always tried to do. And you always hope that's reciprocated on the other side. As far as leaving the business, we're all left with what we tolerate. And honestly, I had no more tolerate in me. And, I look at that and it was kind of left on the floor of a dingy, secretive, Phoenix Hotel conference room when the Hallady and Realmuto hearings took place. And I had made a decision that day is like, you know what? I can sit back and do nothing, or I can try to make a difference, try to right the wrongs that I'm seeing. And it got to the point where I just like, you know what? I'm not a concierge. If I can't do great work for Realmuto, for Hallady, because of the confines of a system that I see flawed, then I need to do something about it, not just complain.
But you felt as though that changing the system was going to be easier from the outside. Yes. Boris thinks that changing the system from the inside and by stacking the executive council, he thinks that that's the way to change it. What made you think that changing it from the outside was going to work? Because most people who leave the industry end up becoming forgotten and irrelevant.
Well, and I very well may be and which is fine. That was something I had talked about. The irrelevant, any of that, I'm relevant to my wife and kids, right?
Are
I
you
own
sure?
racehorses with Jason Worth. That's a cool thing to say, right? We're running in the first at Saratoga this Saturday. And so all these different things, the part of relevant, if people want to listen, great. My goal is to be, I joked with my wife, who's unbelievably supportive. I said, I want to be an unpaid, unencumbered, independent baseball advocate, that I want to make the game better. And I believe the media is the most powerful way to do it. I saw the impact of going on the record, of saying what I said on Posey. I'm so tired. I think baseball media is an echo chamber of incompetency. I'm sick and tired of, like, it wears me over 26 years of unnamed sources, of granted anonymity so they can speak with candor. It's like, go on the record here, guys. This is baseball. It's a sport. We ain't dealing with Middle East peace here. And it's like, let's do what's right without fear, do it with honor, and try to move the game forward that way. And there are too many levers to pull, and too many encumbrances, too many entanglements, too many things. As an agent, I have no one to, I don't know no one pays me. So who are you going to complain?
But Jeff, are you saying that your players would not want you as their agent if you were on the record and not anonymous, if you were unencumbered, as you've said? Because are you suggesting that anyone who's paid by definition has to be encumbered?
No, I'm saying that on any player, the fragility of a Major League Baseball career. You've seen markets, how they react, how they move. You don't want then all the unnamed sources, they don't like your agent. It isn't about the agent. It's about the talent of the player. I never wanted to create. I knew I was done the day of the Hader and Realmuto hearings. I just had to see them through the finish line, right? And because I knew what a long slog that would be. And I feel like I didn't want players, I didn't want employees, I didn't want anyone seeing ghosts around the corner thinking, oh, your outspokenness is coming back to bite us.
You started your post-agent career. There was a very interesting, and we covered it on Nothing Personal, the Hader rules. Yeah. And it got a lot of attention. Josh Hader, obviously the current closer, who is you got quite a deal. That was you getting that deal with Houston, was it not?
Well, it was Hader's talent. I was just along for the ride. I was the jockey supporting a guy with incredible intestinal fortitude, the best in the world. And on your take, one, I appreciated you mentioning it on the show, because I think stories like that are good for the game. I think on the record authenticity is good for the game. I think it's good for conversation. But I will tell you, David, I listened to your take on it, and your take was wrong. You took the wrong look at it. And the motivations and what moved us to act the way we did, it wasn't intentional, but you said, oh, well, Jeff Berry says, my player does not want to be used the way he's being used multiple innings, want to protect him from injury. We didn't start out to protect Hader. We just wanted him to be paid as the best first-time ARB-eligible reliever in history, a premise that we all agreed on. The Brewers agreed on, their front office, their general manager, their manager, and the statistics. You have one of the things I want to tell you about Hader is, so David Stearns had a quote that we certainly recognize.
The president of the Brewers, the president of baseball ops for the Brewers.
Yeah, and a guy I really like. We certainly recognize the value that Josh has to our organization. We consider him the best reliever in baseball right now. Okay, so do we. We're good. Another quote by Stearns, and this goes to, and now we're going to get into the arbitration and how I feel you're one of the most impactful men of the 21st century as an executive in baseball. I don't know if that was said right. One of the most impactful executives in baseball in the 21st century. And
I don't
Stearns
hear
said,
that every day. I'm going to ask for a follow-up because that sounds like maybe it's a compliment, but I can't decide yet.
It is. It is. It's just truth. I don't know if it's a compliment or anything else. It's just a fact. But Stearns says the industry's perception of the value of a reliever and how we're deploying relievers has changed. The value that Josh has provided us has surprised even me about the value any reliever can provide a club. But when you put guys in high leverage situations and they're able to execute in those situations over multiple innings, it creates tremendous value. We all agree. Stearns is an LRD progeny. He's a Harvard guy. He's smart. You don't get to where you are without being a pretty good executive. And so we were all in agreement, yet we ended up in a hearing room. Tell me why.
Tell reason why
Jeff, don't you? You're a pop culture guy.
Listen, I will tell you why, because you're giving half the story. I don't know that you're reading from the arbitration booklet, but you may be. You may be reading from the notes and from the exhibits from an arbitration hearing. And as our listeners know, because we've talked about arbitration, it's where you have between 3 and 6 years of experience, and the agent and the team can't agree to what the salary of the player will be, unlike the first 3 years where the team is in charge, and unlike after 6 years when the player's a full free agent. And in that interim period, there's something called arbitration. And sometimes you go to the room, and in the room, it's the team's job to make sure that the player is paid according to a comp that will both be accepted by the 3 arbitrators, and that there's a filing number where there is a reasonable way for a conclusion that the right number is below the midpoint between where the player files and the team files. And you put on a case. It's like a trial. You're reading something from a case, and it's true that both sides can agree that there's a great player. We didn't argue Miguel Cabrera was a bad player. We argued you can't put Miguel Cabrera that much ahead of Pujols.
Right.
So those are two different things, Jeff.
I get that. One of the things I want to do, and I want you to go to your bosses after this at Metalark Media, I want to televise arbitration because I think everything done in the light is done much better. I think it's incredible content, incredible entertainment, and it's baseball stats. Is there anything better to argue about than baseball stats? And the whole idea with Hader is Stearns didn't want to go to a room. I didn't want to go to a room. I wanted Josh to be treated in a manner of how the game evolved. And I thought we as an industry, meaning me as an agent, I filed $100,000 over an 11-year-old contract. That is atrocious. And I was still able to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And the reason why is because the LRD commandeered arbitration with something called file and trial. And you had told me before, you said, no, when we had talked in the past, you go, no, I invented that. I'm like, what? You go, no, I invented that because of Vladimir and Wilton Guerrero.
That's a true story.
Can we reveal, is this true?
So the LRD is the Labor Relations Department, and they are one of the departments of the commissioner's office, and they are there in arbitration. It is the team that puts on the arbitration. And we once hired Dan Halem. We started Dan Halem's career in baseball. I hired him to represent us in arbitration when he was an associate of Proskauer Rose, and now he's the deputy commissioner of Major League Baseball. I think, though, it's important for you to explain to our audience that you are in that arbitration room. You're trying to get a number for your player, but you only go to that room. You've got the union in your ear. And you can deny this, but it'll be not truthful.
Zero. You're
telling me the union never got involved if you were settling at a number that was so far below any comps?
I was indifferent to whatever the union was going to do. Josh and I were lockstep in this. Right is right, wrong is wrong. Josh Hader when he goes into this, he was deployed, he was weaponized really intellectually by the Brewers, right? David Stearns, this brilliant Harvard kid, LRD progeny, he comes in, no, we're going to use the best reliever in baseball. He won back-to-back reliever of the years. He was back-to-back all-star. And here's an ARB thing for you, out of nearly 4,000 pitchers since 1871. 1871, David. with at least 200 career innings. Hader's the all-time major league career leader in strikeouts per 9 and opponents' batting average against. So he's the hardest to hit. He's been deployed in the most efficient way ever. The general manager is repeatedly on record saying he is the best in baseball. We are even surprised at his value. Yet I go into a room. I don't think Stearns wanted to go into a room. I wasn't bullied by the union at all. Zero. So you can put that to the side. I will tell you, Stearns was bullied into the room by the LRD. He was bullied into the room by file and trial that you created. And everyone in the room agreed on these principles. It was plain as day. And the fact of the matter is, Pat Houlihan, nice guy, great hair, all that stuff. He goes and he does a great presentation, but he says, Mr. Barry comes here today seeking to change 40 years of salary arbitration precedent that says saves are the currency by which relievers are valued. There wasn't one person in that room outside of the 3 octogenarian, I don't know, is that the right word? Arbiters.
If they were over 80, it is.
Yeah. And they were there was no one on the LRD side. I watched 50 kids running in and out of the room in their bad suits, thinking they're fighting for something. They fought for something that not one person in the room believed in, and that's that our saves are the currency by which relievers are valued.
So
no one believes that.
Do you agree that in the arbitration room, and I don't want to take up our whole show on this, but I could. We got to do more shows, Jeff. Are you telling me that we have to tell the audience there are something called the arbitration criteria that is read into the record of every case?
Yes.
Those are rules that are collectively bargained, that are found in the agreement, where arbitration is a section where you go through how arbitration happens, what arbitrators are supposed to look at. There are exhibits in every case. And it's ridiculous because we all know what the exhibits are, the same exhibits for every player. And they're always agreed to. They're always put into the record unopposed by the LRD and the union.
Okay, great.
So when you say that there were only 3 people, the octogenarians, who used the most ridiculous precedents of all time.
Saves are not the currency saves the currency by which relievers are valued. I'm asking you, David Samson.
Only in arbitration.
But that's wrong. That's the point I'm getting at. If you have a system that is unable
to fix it in the CBA,
that's what I'm
Jeff.
trying to do now. That's why I want to televise arbitration. You do not get wonky decisions that defy logic if it's done in a public forum. It's why our court system is done in public, because it can be graded and judged. There wasn't one person in the room. And the reality of it is, what your listeners don't understand is arbitration are 3 club options. And because David Stearns, he goes, look, I don't disagree with you. After we lost the hearings, I don't disagree with you, but that's just how ARB is. So I'm going to look the best reliever in the world. Everybody agrees on it, and just throw up my hands and say, oh, well, that's how ARB is.
Have you ever lost a possession arrow case?
Huh?
A possession arrow case.
How do you
know
mean?
What a possession arrow case is? I don't know if you guys use that talk in agent speak. Possession arrow, because the arbitrators happen to be chosen by both the union and management.
No, I know what you mean. Like everybody, you go back and forth, and it's like
if the clubs have won 4 cases in a row.
I think that's a true factor, because people want their vacation, and
arbitrators want their jobs.
Yes, well,
a possession arrow case, Jeff, is when the unions won 4 in a row. We go into that hearing, we're going to win. We can stand on our head naked and we're going to win.
That's a. I know you can't cuss. That's a horse malarkey way to run a judgment on players that have worked their whole lives to get to that point. I couldn't look myself in the mirror and say, all right, well, I'm going to throw up my hands. David Samson says that's just how arbitration is. David Stearns said to me, no, well, he'll get paid in free agency. And I'm like, you know what? At that point, I decided I'd rather mow lawns in Florida and do my Peloton outdoors than let Josh Hader become Dylan Betances.
But one of the ways that you can effectuate change, and I'm fascinated by your decision to do this outside of the world of baseball, because I'm outside that world too, and I'm trying to do it also. So
yes, I agree. And I think you are doing it, David.
I'm trying, but I must tell you that when I look at what Scott Boras did, and you can disagree with me, but I believe that he had his hands in the CBA negotiating pie, and
I
that
don't.
I
You
know
know what
you
I
don't.
think that is? I think that's a bunch of unnamed. Then somebody come out and instead of unnamed sources, people go on the record. People want to speak with innuendo, this or that. I think Bruce Meyer and Tony Clark. People can say, "Oh, well, this or that." I think Bruce Meyer was the best thing that happened to the union in the last 20 years. I think he had zero influence from Scott Boras.
You think that Max Scherzer? Let me try to better. Let me try
Oh,
different.
you're saying that Scherzer's a conduit for Boras?
And you're saying that Scherzer, everything he did at the table, that he never bothered to speak to Scott about. Scott
Oh,
never
I think
bothered to
he
speak to him
spoke with
about.
Scott, but I also think Max Scherzer's his own man. I think he's one of the few. I think certain people are attracted to certain agents. I think Scherzer's his own man. I do believe that.
Well, we can debate Scott Boras. I'm not sure anyone who has Scott Boras as an agent has made a good decision, including players of mine who I love, and it frustrates me. I would rather them have you as an agent any day of the week, or Joel Wolf any day of the week, than having Scott. But in any case, if we're going to effectuate change, do you not think that the CBA is the proper forum to do that?
I think the CBA, I think both sides on the CBA, you're keeping the same. When you say, oh, the CBA will bring in labor lawyers, this or that, I think the CBA is hindered by antiquated leaderships that are like the progeny of an antiquated past, right? Something that I think the game has evolved. I think baseball's on the precipice of greatness. I think live content is king. You look the Olympics, you've been critical of the Olympics. Have you looked at their digital footprint, their coverage? I get people calling me all the time now. Oh, do you want to invest in this? We, represent the pickleball league and cornhole league and, live content. We're going to rodeo. I'm like, are you crazy? I'm not going to invest in that. Baseball has 30 teams have 190 dates of 5 hours of content, pregame, game, postgame. Rob Manfred, I think, should go into the Hall of Fame for one single thing, and that was unilaterally implementing the pitch clock. I think it saved the game. I think the TV
Sad
coverage,
that he had to do it unilaterally, Jeff. What that means is that under the CBA, you can do whatever you want, but you have to give the union notice. And if they don't agree to it, as long as they have a year's notice, you can implement whatever change you want.
No, and that took courage to go out. No, I'm going to change. It was a radical change that I think saved the sport. Baseball was unwatchable. They would have like themes like, oh, let the kids play. We would watch 50 million dances. You'd have walk-up music that lasted 10 minutes. You'd watch each reliever like he was launching a satellite between every pitch. It was unbearable. And I love baseball. And look, I don't know the commissioner. He's aware of me. I'll say that.
He certainly is.
But the point of it is he saved the sport with what he did. And I think we're on the precipice of greatness, but I don't think it gets there with the leaderships in place on either side.
So is he the number one most influential person in the 21st century in baseball? Do you have Rob as number one?
In the 21st, Rob is certainly on there. Billy Beane, vis-a-vis Brad Pitt and Michael Lewis, Theo Epstein, Jeff Lunau, and David Samson. And if you truly invented the file and trial, that was one of the most impact. I remember the first time I heard file and trial, David. I was a young agent, and
we called it file to go. I called it file to go, by the way.
Okay,
but now it's known as file to trial. Can we just quickly explain what that means?
Please do.
There is a date where you submit when you can't come to an agreement with an agent over what a player will get paid between 3 and 6 years of experience. You exchange numbers. It's called the exchange date, where you submit to the commissioner's office, we are going to offer Miguel Cabrera $6.4 million. On that same date, his agent submits to the union, we are going to ask the Marlins for $7.4 million. And that is called the exchange date. And then you get the numbers from us and we get the numbers from you. And our rule was very simple. Once numbers are exchanged, we will no longer negotiate with you. We are going to the room no matter what. It's called file to go, file to trial.
Yep.
And that is a system where we were alone doing that system. And now, this many years later, everybody does it.
25 years later, and it's had one of the most, I think it's had significant impact at every level of the sport. I think what it did, and I have some of my notes here because I wanted to give you credit. What it did, it took away individual responsibility, liability from the team. You throw up your hands, oh, it's our policy. Agents back down. The first time I ever heard it, I remember I was with Michael Weiner, Casey Close, and
Michael Weiner, former head of the union, who tragically is
brilliant
passed.
guy, one
Casey
of the
Close,
kindest,
Jeter's agent.
one of the kindest, and Brody Van Wagenen, it was a partner of mine along. So I was there, and I've been told my whole agent career, oh, you don't get it. I probably don't. But I remember I said, hey, this team, I don't even remember the player, but look, this is our offer. If it's acceptable, great. If not, we'll just exchange numbers and go to a hearing. We're filed to go, whatever. And I remember hanging up the phone, and I was talking with Michael, and I said, hey, look, you're the expert at this. I don't want to overstep my bounds, but this team just told me if we don't take this number, we're going to go to a hearing. They were nice about it. They didn't try to punch me in the face, but, I just got bumped in a hallway. And what I think we should do is hang up the phone and say, look, we're a file to go agency. We'll see you in a hearing. Click. Hang up. And then we just all go. Because if someone bumps you in a hallway, they're sending a message. If you don't respond, it ain't going to get better. So now, over the course of time, you stagnated a whole arbitration market. You had me schlepping around $100,000 over an 11-year-old contract trying to convince a client or convince myself that it's a good deal. When Papelbon's deal was done, baseball revenues were $5.5 billion. When Hader's were done, they were closer to 12. So double. I should have been asking for 12.5. Instead, I acquiesced to the David Samson implemented file and trial. Oh, we got to file, a win number. We got to file this. And all of a sudden, I'm backed into a corner. Agents now spend all their time trying to convince their clients, no, we fought, it's a good deal, and we get something done on exchange date. Because having something done in a back room of a dingy Phoenix or St. Petersburg hotel room, there is no upside for the agents, right? You don't make it. It costs a lot. There's a ton of money to go to a hearing, a ton of time and preparation, and to make $100,000, to make $500,000, to make $1 million, fine. But people aren't willing to do that because if you lose, I obviously don't know what I'm doing. I lost Hader and Realmuto in the same week. JT Realmuto, David, was no different. The Phillies, Scott Profrock?
Yes, of course.
Good dude, right? Like, I like almost everyone in baseball. I only have one person. You say this is nothing personal. I literally like almost everyone in the game. I think everybody's just trying to do their job. I have a personal beef with only one guy, but I'm saving that for the book. And
you're doing that on this show. You're going to say you have beef with one person and he's going to go unnamed.
Unnamed, yes.
Okay,
because
that's your prerogative.
I'm gonna have. My goal is to have a book published by next All-Star break that I hope impacts, future labor, future everything.
Are you spilling the tea?
What's that?
Are you going to spill the tea in this book? Are you going to tell stories?
It's not a spill the tea. I think we have an opportunity to be great, but it's done not through labor hawks. It's done. I think we have the greatest media product in the world. I think when I envision the next commissioner, I envision someone like your boss, John Skipper, someone who understands how to build media, how to partner, how to take advantage of our massive inherent advantages as a sport with the number of live content.
Are you willing to talk to me about the CBA? Because what are the changes that you would want? Because you talk about file to go and it worked. And the reason why we did it is, and the only way it would work is that if we stuck to it. If agents ever thought that we would blink, then we were absolutely screwed. So we just never would blink.
You always have to do what you say or you become impotent.
That's exactly, well, Yes, and incompetent.
That both.
And maybe incontinent.
Man, I don't but you get my point is you changed, and you know what that did? You stagnated ARB salaries. Now people are saying, and it's a group thing. Oh, no, we'll throw up our hands. The LRD is going to tell us what to do. You're acquiescing control of your team. The Phillies, JT Realmuto, who's an awesome kid, great former Marlin. I demanded a trade. I don't know if you were still
nope.
Jeter had already fired you at that point?
Yes, that was Jeter.
I
wanted JT. I wanted him, and I'm still in touch with him. I love JT.
JT's as good as it gets.
And he's as good a player, but he's a better person. We went through the whole Jose Fernandez death together.
I remember.
And remember when he came out, when we drafted him, he was not the best catcher. Do you know why? You remember?
Because he was a shortstop.
He didn't play catcher.
But I know Stan Meek from the time I was in law school. Stan Meek's one of the best scouts in history, and he was
one of our scouts. My whole career, we had Stan Meek, and I will never forget this because I didn't know that you were with JT when I was first introduced to JT. Is saying, "Hey, this shortstop, we're going to create a catcher, and there's a chance
we didn't have him out of the draft.
Catcher of all time. Oh, you did not?
No.
So there's a chance that he will be the best catcher that you've ever seen. And so catchers are so hard to come by. And so we made him a catcher. I was sad. I'm sad. I'm happy that he got the deal he got in Philly.
No, but
we tried to sign him, and wait a minute, you did represent him.
When?
When you told us that
when he was with
like
Marlins,
Posey.
I represented him. I picked him up in the minor leagues. But the funny thing about Stan Meek is an Oklahoma guy. Stan Meek is one of the smartest baseball men I've ever known, and one of the nicest men I've ever known. He's like a grandfatherly, kind, good, fair guy. And Stan saw JT randomly near his Norman, Oklahoma. And JT was a 3-sport athlete. You know his history. He comes from a lineage of Olympic gold medalists, national champions in wrestling.
Good blood.
And he played 3 sports in high school and was great in all of them. Led him to the, Class 5A championship as a quarterback. He's what you want aspire your sons to be in both character, athleticism, intellect. He's that total package. I think you would agree with that.
Or daughters, anybody.
Or daughters, yes.
I want anybody to be JT.
Yes. And Stan Meek saw him, and they were at, some Chili's, the Marlins contingency, because you knew you had that little Oklahoma Marlins mafia. Jim Fleming's a great friend of mine. Rosie, I knew him forever. Like all those guys I grew up with when I was in law school at 24, 25 years old. And Stan Meek saw JT Realmuto, and he's been a scout and in baseball his whole life. And he's like, he had a meeting with all his guys in Chili's and said, hey, I just think I saw the greatest athlete. I think I just saw Jim Thorpe playing baseball. And then all the scouts were excited. No, we can't wait to get in there. And Stan's like, no. This never goes a minute further. We never go see him again. And we do not mention his name. I don't need anyone to see him. I've seen him. And we're taking this kid.
But could you explain, though, for me, now that we're past it, when we offered him a long-term contract as a young player.
Yeah.
And you demanded that he get paid like Buster Posey, except he had no MVP votes. He had no World Series rings. Now, I would have argued to myself, which I did with our owner and with our baseball people, that I think JT will have a better career than Buster Posey. And we can debate that at another time because I think it's maybe true. But today, which is the day we were offering that long-term deal at the time as a young player, he had not accomplished what Buster had accomplished. But your position and was resolute, which is why we didn't get a deal done, sadly. How is it that you felt? And do you?
Because here's the thing. You hear all the smarty pants in the front office. You don't get paid for what you've done. You get paid for what you're going to do. I felt the same way about JT. I think he's one of the greatest athletes I've ever seen. And here's the thing. The Marlins, you guys weren't a very good team at the time. You had traded Stanton. You had traded Yelich. There was no one left.
That's not true. You're misunderstanding the time. Jeter traded Stanton, Yelich, and JT. I'm going way back
when he was young.
To when he started.
All right, my apologies if my timeline.
I get blamed for everything, Jeff.
Either way, when you were offering that, we thought he was better than that. And we thought he was one of the rarest of breeds, a catcher that's good all the way around. And the reality of it is, and going back to your file and trial system, I mentioned ProFrock. ProFrock told me when they were making the offers on because the arbitration precedent, again, something I wasn't able to overcome as an agent is no, catchers can only be compared to catchers. He was literally a clone to Anthony Rendon, and Anthony Rendon makes 12.3. JT had outpaced the ARB system for other catchers. There were no comparables. They were almost identical. And I'm thinking, I hear from Pat Houlihan again with his great hair and silky voice. No, Mr. Berry comes here again seeking to change precedent. It's clear that catchers can only be compared to catchers. Hold on. And I'm like, this is insane. If I had any guts whatsoever, David, I would have made the arbitration panel stand up and I say, all right, here is Anthony Rendon. I want you to stand up and squat down 2 inches. Now, here is JT Realmuto. I want you to get on the ground and I'm going to throw staple guns at you off your body. You block them. You also have to do all the pregame pitcher meetings. You have to call the game. You have to take a physical beating that is unlike any other position in the sport, yet you're going to pay him less because he's a catcher? Like, how do I can't live with that. Like, I just can't.
So is this the biggest change that you would make in the CBA? Would you make the arbitration either? So one of the things that I couldn't get votes for, and I don't know if you could get votes on your side, I want to give players free agency from the beginning. I want there to be no long-term deals and every player's a free agent from 0 days of service until the day they retire or get waived and released. Every year.
Yeah, you're like Charlie Finley. Wasn't that what Finley wanted to do 40 years ago?
And tell me why I can't get the votes. What's the reason?
Here's the thing.
I know why I think.
Well, like I said, I think baseball's on the precipice of greatness. You want to write in because you think we can outsmart all this and we're going to come up with a strategy and rules. I'm the smartest guy in the room. I'm a team owner, blah, blah, blah. I'm a labor leader on either side, right? And you ask me the changes that I would make to the next CBA, the answer would be none because no one's going hungry right now, right? I'm not just looking to survive and advance and make up little ground. I want baseball to thrive, and I think it should. And you asked me the changes I would make. What I would change is, I think, antiquated leadership on both sides. People that are so locked into the past that they can't see the availability of greatness in the future. And, I look at this is...
Jeff, didn't the union try to do that when they tried to get Harry in there instead of Tony and Bruce?
I don't think that's more of the same. Just because some dude put together a minor league, that's a joke. Bruce Meyer fought like hell for the union.
So you would change out, but you would change out Bruce and Tony, you're saying? Yes,
I would. And it's not because I don't like them.
But not with Harry.
No.
So what is the type of person you want leading the union?
Someone who is a media expert. There was a great article in the Wall Street Journal. Do your listeners, does Nothing Personal with David Samson, do they read the Wall Street Journal?
Yes, 42.9% of them.
There you go. There was a great article. 3 young activists who never worked in the auto industry helped deliver a huge win for the UAW. And so much of it is about communicating to your constituencies. They were young kids. They were in their 30s, and they used media. They weren't afraid to speak. They weren't beholden to old traditions, old rules. I think baseball, when I look at no, Jeff, you can't speak out like that. You can't do this. Why not?
Well, you got in trouble during the Buster Posey, Scott Cousins situation, didn't you?
I got in trouble plenty of times. But the point of it is, I'm not trying to get in trouble. I'm trying to do the right thing. And I'm very convicted on this because I've often felt you have players are this, players are that. Players are great. And you know how hard it is to make to the major leagues and to stay there and to survive. They have a level of dedication, mental, physical toughness that 99.9% of the world doesn't have. And so I have great respect. And you know where they all come from? Every normal little household around the world of parents that, like I love players and I love owners. I always had a great relationship with you. I've had good relationships with everyone. It's not about us. It's not about us. It's about the talent on the field and how can we make it the most profitable for everybody? Because I think baseball is a great show.
So you have in your mind, you said you wouldn't change anything in the CBA. You would change the leadership, and you want that leadership to be more media savvy.
Yes, I want John Skipper to be the commissioner of baseball. Someone like him. You like that idea?
John Skipper is the commissioner. He certainly has experience on the media side, and the more revenue we can get from our media partners, as we've seen with the NBA and the NFL deals, I don't understand why MLB's deal is smaller. It should not be. We provide many more hours of content during the summer months.
Great content. The game's watchable now. I think the camera, all the angles, the box, I think it's fabulous to watch on TV, and I think most people agree.
So I assume you used the media the way I did when I was president for 18 years. I assume in terms of purposeful leaks and having people where you get certain information out. Did you have anybody, and you don't have to name them if you don't want, save it for the book, but did you pay attention to any of the media when you were trying to do deals for your players?
No, I actually went the opposite way. All the fake news, I call it the fake stove league. It's all agents and just desperate writers looking for information. It's false.
You never added to it. You never put anything out there in order to try.
The only time I went off the record?
Tell me.
Is because the time that I went off the record, and intentionally so, was when I made public the story of the arbitration belt. When the LRD would reward the WWE belt, whoever got the lowest.
I may still have mine.
No, I can't. I like being able to see you. I'm uncomfortable when it's just me on the stream. Coca, keep David on the screen so I can see him when we're talking. And so I went public.
You're trying to produce our show now, for Christ's sake.
Maybe. But I'm just saying it's better when I can see you. It throws me off when it's just me and my white hair and I look at your luscious black hair. You
have a thing with hair, with Houlihan, with me. You've got a great head of hair.
You know why? Because look at this. It looks ghost. It's not this white in real life. But no, going back to the point is that story needed to be out there. Morgan Sword and all the little minions of David Sampson's genius idea of the LRD. No, we're not only going to jam deals down players' throats. We're going to celebrate whoever can get the farthest under our already low recommendations. And I'm thinking, you know what? You just had the Phillies, who Scott Profrock told me, he goes, no, someone needs to change this rule. David Stern said, I don't disagree with you. And I failed on both accounts. So you asked me, can I change the game within? I don't know. I was trying to. I didn't do a very good job at it. And so I wanted it to be out there because I think someone with that Morgan Sword championship belt mindset, I think is horrible for the future. I don't think that should be the next wave of leadership for the sport.
Let me just explain for people who may not have heard of this before what you're talking about.
And I was the one who leaked that story, David. And here, let me even go further. It took me more than a half dozen writers, and I'm saving some of this for the book. For someone that would print it because they were scared of repercussions coming at them from Major League Baseball. Took me 6 people. I finally found Mark Carrig with The Athletic who had the courage to publish that article. And
that created quite a stir when that got published.
And I didn't even go on the record. Imagine if I had gone on the record, how much more powerful it would have been.
Everything is more powerful when there's a name attached. But I would like to explain what that was actually. And I think you know. I just want to make sure it's clear to the audience. And I don't know that I disagree with how you interpreted it. I think that I disagree with how I sold what that belt was. That was because the union, in our view, also had numbers for their players the way the LRD, which is the commissioner's office, had numbers for our players. So we knew that we were dealing with, it's our player, and we've got the commissioner's number and we've got the union's number. Now, those numbers become crystallized when you exchange, but during the negotiation, you are getting suggestions about what your LRD number is, meaning what number should this player sign for. However, I was involved, our GM, we were involved in what the LRD numbers were. If our LRD number for Cabrera or for anybody was too low, we would not want to violate by going over the LRD number. So we would speak to the LRD and say, you've got to raise that number. It's an incorrect number.
Or you would bend the knee to the LRD. You would pass it off. I used to talk to Billy.
But you had to agree to the deal. Just keep in mind that what upsets me a tiny bit, not with you, but no deal with the player gets done without the agent agreeing to it.
Right.
So if you think our number's too low, then you don't agree to it. Then you go to arbitration.
No, but you don't go to arbitration because you intimidated the whole agent community with your file and trial, and it wasn't worth the risk of going. So instead, you convinced your client that you got a good deal. So you literally held back 3 generations of players of what their rightful value is. And, we could talk about this all day. Maybe Metalark, can they get me my own show, David? Can we do that? Can I and my only thing, you don't even have to pay me. I just want Coca.
You cannot have Coca. Coca is so expensive. You can't have him, but we're too lucky to have him. He's been with us since the first episode in October of 2019.
He's a superstar. And his physical look is even better. He's all tatted up with his, good look, and I love it. So Coca.
People assume he wasn't real, but I just want to go back to the fact that when there's a negotiation with an agent, you are representing your player. I am representing both our owner, but I'm also representing our sport.
No, but represent yourself. How about that? I'm not doing the union's bidding. I can promise you that. You keep going back to that. That's incorrect.
You operated independently of the union at all times?
No, I'll communicate with the union, but if I disagree with them, my obligation is not to the union.
Same with me.
No,
if I disagree with LRD, I change the number.
No, I don't buy that because David Stearns, Scott Profrock, both didn't disagree with me. Profrock went so far as to say someone should change this. They loved JT Realmuto. Anybody that's ever met JT Realmuto loves him. What happened to him was wrong. It didn't make sense. And it's not like, Jeff Berry needs to be a better agent. Probably true. But the point of it is, it's not my intellect that should have won or lost the day, or it's not my incompetence that should have won or lost the day. It's common sense that if you have a great employee, then you know what? No, JT Realmuto, you do play more than Anthony Rendon. You have identical numbers and you catch for us and you give everything you can. Josh Hader, you do this. Morgan Sword, I had one GM tell me, no, I told Morgan, no, they're right. He's like, no, but if we give this up, then we'll have to pay guys with saves and without saves. David Stearns said to me, he goes, yeah, but it benefits guys with saves. I said, David, I'm not a newbie. It doesn't benefit guys with saves. If you have a guy with a ton of saves that is overvalued, you know what you do? You non-tender him. So it doesn't benefit them.
But then we lose the player. But yes.
So what?
I absolutely
like David Stearns, like what is the old saying? No, power plays in arbitration. I don't know. That kid, Chris Carter, hit 45 home runs. Stearns releases him.
So the other thing, and we could go all day. We only have under 2 minutes left.
No, but I wanted to get to Crochet because I thought and look, it says, I'm looking at the screen now. It says nothing personal with David Samson. After I listen to your take on Crochet, you need to change the title of your show to Everything is Personal with David Samson.
It was not personal at all. My opinion, Crochet's a great guy, Jeff. My opinion is that you do not tell me that you will not pitch unless you have an extension.
No, but all right. So here, when you say it's nothing personal, I'm going to go back because I only have 2 minutes. I want to change the name of your show. I'll run it by Coca. I Take Everything Personal by David Samson. Here's your quotes on Crochet. Who in the hell does he think he is? It's like a joke. On my whiteboard, he's crossed out. Wait, it gets better. No chance, toilet pants, am I letting him wear my jersey. And then you go further. You go, I'm so worked up about this kid. He may be a great kid. I don't give a flying rat's pituitary gland. If
That's
he
instead
gets
of
an
rat's ass.
extension, I will be shocked at what wimps the other front offices in Major League Baseball are. I want to, that's the most personal take I've ever heard. How do you have ownership? And we can then go into the Mark Buerhle. You know, Getz says, oh, it's hurtful. What do you mean hurtful? Why is it you guys release players? You had the, and this is a great topic. You had the most traumatic, hurtful trade of my career when you dealt Mark Buerhle to Toronto. And unbeknownst to me, I knew who we were dealing. I didn't take it personal. They had a pit bull ban in Toronto. It was, and you loved the Buerhles, yet you still did it. And it was just business.
So
Everything personal.
I appreciate your time. I've loved this episode. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us. And I end every show the same. It's just personal. My name is David Samson. Thank you, Jeff.
David, thanks for having me.